It's been a strange year or two, but we were delighted to be back at the Barber Surgeons Hall to honour the extraordinary work journalists have produced in these extraordinary times. After last year's virtual awards night, we decided to go for the real thing this year. Obviously, we took precautions against COVID, but not even a pandemic could dampen the spirits of our members and invited guests as they came together to hear who had won our coveted awards in 2021. We'd like to say a special thank you to our sponsors for their invaluable support. Without our principal sponsors, Bristol Myers Squibb, and individual award sponsors, Edelman, Medtronic, Roche and Christine Weber, it would not be possible to stage these awards, which are now recognised as the Oscars of health and medical journalism. Our host was the indefatigable broadcaster Nicholas Owen, who praised his audience of health writers, saying, "In a pandemic year, we can't escape you, and we're extremely glad about it." But first, because last year's awards were virtual, we invited all those winners who were able to join us to come to the stage for a well-deserved round of applause. Then another rare event. We presented only the 7th ever MJA Lifetime Achievement Award to Professor Sir David Spiegelhalter, statistician and science communicator extraordinaire. David has helped countless journalists communicate risk to their audiences with accuracy and clarity. But in the last year, he's co-written a weekly 350-word article for The Observer. That, he said, really taught me to respect your skills. Our annual awards for 2021 started with Charity Writer or Broadcaster of the Year, which went to Jane Feynman, a freelance who deftly tackled the issue of food banks for the BMJ's annual charity appeal. Unfortunately, Jane could not attend, so the award was collected on her behalf. And Judge Catherine Collins grabbed the opportunity for an unscripted thank you to the audience. Our award for Podcast of the Year was scooped by Sue Mitchell, Dr. John Wright, Winifred Robinson and Richard Hannaford, who produced what the judges called a compelling series on the unfolding COVID epidemic in Bradford for the BBC documentary unit.
It's really nice because this award is really for the people of Bradford. This was all recorded in the Bradford Royal Infirmary, and it was really the dedication of the doctors, nurses, people at all levels in the hospital, and it was really their award more than ours.
That they took time out of their crazy schedules to help contribute. Amazing, yeah.
So we feel quite proud that it's recognised as a really important piece of work, and that those voices will never be lost.
Our award for the Newcomer of the Year, often a stepping stone to an illustrious career, was won by Ethan Ennals of the Mail on Sunday for a report called "How Thousands of Patients Died of Coronavirus They Caught in Hospitals." Ashish Joshi, Rachel Lucas, Chris Curtis and Elliot Crawford of Sky News collected the award for the Mental Health Story of the Year, supported by Edelman and presented by Victoria Bramham, Head of Client Services. Theirs was a wide-ranging report on the second epidemic, Britain's mental health crisis. The Dr. David Delvin Award for Sex and Sexual Health Journalism, which is supported by David's widow, Christine Weber, went to Zaria Gorvit for her feature on the challenges faced by transgender people for BBC Future. In an unprecedented result, 2 journalists, both from The Economist, shared the award for the Specialist Feature of the Year, Simon Ackham and Natasha Loder. Simon's feature told the story of the first wave of COVID. Natasha wrote about the development of COVID vaccines under the title Suddenly Hope.
Big story at the start of the pandemic, following a group of doctors, nurses and paramedics across London throughout the first wave. Big and intense piece of work, visiting hospitals and so forth, and it spawned 2 more big COVID assignments after that, so it's great to get this recognition. I'd like to thank my editors at the magazine, Jonathan Beckman and Rosie Blau, for backing this project and seeing it through from the start.
I have one for a feature called Suddenly Hope, which we wrote a couple of days after the Pfizer vaccine had its first results, and we found out that it was extremely effective, or I think it was like 94% effective or something like that. It's been a really long, difficult year, and that when we heard that news, I sort of shared the excitement and the kind of feeling of joy and hope. And so the feature was really important to me to write personally, so actually I felt really great about winning this particular award for this particular feature.
Fergus Walsh, Alison Priestley, Juana Marosico and Diane Martin won the award for the broadcast feature of the year. Alison Priestley collected it for them. Their panorama on the development of a COVID vaccine was the warts and all story behind the success. Our award for the feature of the year for a general audience went to Stuart Franklin of the Sunday Times magazine. The judges said his piece on the COVID outbreak was an impressively early eyewitness account and an eye-opener for its audience, with great access to its subject.
And I'm totally honoured and delighted. It was just a surprise and just a really nice evening, and so many interesting and worthy entries as well. So I'm very honoured to be a prize winner in this particular year, where health and medical issues have been right at the forefront of the news agenda for so long. So it's a really a delightful, it's a good year to to win. So I'm absolutely gobsmacked and honoured. So thank you.
The much coveted award for the freelance of the year saw Emma Wilkinson mounting the platform. Her writing for the BMJ, the Pharmaceutical Journal and the Limbic covered HRT, the gender pay gap and the effects of COVID on cancer treatment. Our award for the news story of the year for a specialist audience was carried off by Miko Tatalovich of Research Professional News on his expose of why Britain was unprepared for COVID, despite WHO recommendations to include COVID-19 on a list of priority diseases. The award for news story for a broadcast audience went to a team from BBC News: Sam Piranti, Clive Myrie, David McElveen, Jackie Martins and Paul Royal. Jackie Martins collected it for them. The judges said this was an incredibly moving and insightful report on the realities of coping with the COVID pandemic in a busy ITU.
I have to say, it is wonderful to be recognised in this way by the MJA. After a period of turbulence in our industry that made, frankly, covering this story tricky for all of us because of the restrictions that were placed on us in telling the full story of the COVID pandemic. The contenders in this category, Newsnight, Channel 4 News, amazing journalists, and we tip our hats to you. I have to say, of course, a huge thanks to my brothers in arms, Davey McElveen, cameraman and producer Sam Piranti. It's truly been an extraordinary journey covering the Royal London. Paul Royal, Jackie Martin, executive producers as well, thank you for your guidance. And particular thanks goes, of course, to the staff at the Royal London who were willing to let us into their world, and to the patients there too who were willing to open up their hearts and tell us their stories of how they were dealing with this appalling tragedy. It is an incredible moment that we're all having to deal with, a once in a 100 years event. And telling this story has been frightening. It's been truly depressing at times, but it's also been a privilege. So thanks again to the MGA.
The third and last award for news stories, this time for a general audience, supported by Roche and presented by Simon Goldsborough from Corporate Communications, went to Dean Kirby and Cahill Milmo of the newspaper. They exposed the utter chaos in the procurement of PPE in the NHS at the beginning of the COVID pandemic.
We would like to sort of see this almost as an award for the type of journalism that we feel we were able to produce, which was something which required a sort of commitment from our editors and our publication of time and resource and just graft, I suppose, at a time when publications are under, especially in the last 18 months during the pandemic, to sort of respond to breaking news and breaking news, the 24-hour cycle of news, I suppose. And that was a story that needed to be told, and thankfully we were able to do so.
The well-contested award for the case study of the year was presented by Helen Ball, Communications Manager of sponsors Medtronic, to a team from BBC Stories. Ruth Evans, Layla Wright and Kim Roll investigated alternative treatments for cancer and produced a fascinating insight into how easy it is to be seduced by bogus cures.
It's so amazing. It was such a lovely surprise, I think, for all of us. The first in-person awards in 2 years. Such a lovely ceremony as well. A really strong category. And yeah, just delighted really for us all, aren't we?
Absolutely. And we won in the case study award, so it's really a testament to the bravery of the two families that we spoke to, who shared their stories with us. They both lost loved ones in incredibly tragic circumstances. They believed that they were getting better when in fact they were getting worse, and they were kind of duped by quackery. So this award is for them.
Our award for Science Explained always attracts a flood of entries, and this year it was given to David Robson of BBC Future for his description of exponential growth bias, the numerical error behind COVID-19. David couldn't attend, so the award was collected on his behalf. Editors, love them or hate them, we just couldn't do without them. And this year's award, just for editors, was won by Richard van Noorden, features editor of Springer Nature, for 3 features on, guess what, COVID-19. We were being told to follow the science, and Nature, the judges said, led the way.
I've won the award for Features Editor of the Year, which is for 3 pieces that I submitted as Nature Features, going into explaining aspects of the coronavirus pandemic. Things like the kinds of vaccines that were being made, that confusing number R, and other kinds of things that I think really benefited from a long feature treatment with lots of graphics, really taking our readers through it. And Nature normally writes for a fairly specialist audience of scientists, so it's really nice that a lot of other people have found these features, and they've been really helpful to general audiences from all around the world. So I'm just really delighted to have got this award.
Our award for excellence in PR, given jointly with the Healthcare Communications Association, is unique because it's judged by journalists. And this year, the judges gave the award to King's College London and Zoe, who promoted the app that's become part of our lives during the pandemic.
Oh, we're absolutely so chuffed and thrilled to win it. It's even more special that it's voted on by sort of journalists that we work a lot with on kind of the PR side and the campaign side. So yeah, really thrilled to win.
And finally, the award for an outstanding contribution to health or medical journalism, our most prestigious award, was presented by Paul French, Corporate Affairs Lead UK and Ireland of sponsors Bristol Myers Squibb, to the team that produced Panorama's enthralling documentary on the Oxford COVID vaccine.
Reporting the pandemic comes with real responsibility. Audiences have relied heavily on specialist journalists to explain often complex medical science. Huge thanks to the very talented teams at Panorama and at BBC News, and thanks to the scientists, clinicians and volunteers who we filmed, without whom we wouldn't have vaccines, our best defence against COVID.
In a year that's been like no other, some things don't change. A platform crowded with winners and finalists, soon to mingle with the judges, sponsors and their fellow journalists in this enduring celebration of the very best of British health and medical journalism. If you want to learn more about working with the MJA and our members, please take a look at our website, www.mjauk.org. and get in touch.